Close your eyes for a second. Seriously, do it. I want you to picture one of the most iconic, terrifying moments in manga history. The sun is dying. The lake is turning that sick, deep shade of crimson. The band of the hawk is surrounded, desperate, broken. Griffith, the fallen hawk, is kneeling in the shallow water, his body a ruin of flayed skin and severed tendons. He holds the crimson behelit, the egg of the king. The blood from his own torture flows over the sleeping face of the fetish. The eye snaps open, the mouth screams, the dimension tears apart. Now, pause. Imagine the behelit slips. Imagine his trembling, crippled fingers, slick with river water, and his own blood just fail. The behelit splashes into the mud and sinks. The scream never comes. The sun just sets. The night brings crickets, not demons. The God hand does not answer. The eclipse does not happen. We all want to believe this is the good ending, right? I mean, how many times have we laid awake at night wishing Guts and Casca could just ride away? We think, if only Griffith didn't make the sacrifice. We want to save them. But today, I want to take you on a journey that might change how you see Berserk forever. Because if you dig into the psychological bedrock that Kentaro Miura laid down, if you look at the absolute ruin of these characters' souls before the eclipse, you start to realize something terrifying. The eclipse wasn't just a tragedy. It was an escape hatch. Without it, the Band of the Hawk doesn't get a heroic death. They get something much, much slower. They get a long, festering rot. Welcome to the timeline where everyone survives. And welcome to the true nightmare of the Golden Age. Let's start right there in the carriage. This is the first ripple in the pond of causality. In the original story, the urgency of the demon's force's action. But here, the urgency is gone. Wild is dead. The king's black dog knights are scattered. The hawks have won their escape. So, what happens next? Silence. The first thing that hits you in this new reality is the smell. In the manga, the supernatural horror overpowers the physical reality. But take away the apostles, and you're left with a wagon full of rotting flesh. Griffith isn't just hurt. He has been systematically dismantled for a year. Miura was medically precise with his torture design. The Tower of Rebirth wasn't just a dungeon. It was a butchery of the human spirit. Griffith's tongue is gone. His tendons are severed at the wrists and ankles. He is emaciated to the point of skeletal fragility. In this timeline, Guts and Casca have to care for this body every single day. Think about the visceral reality of that. Guts, the Black Swordsman, the man who swings a slab of iron that defies physics, is now reduced to a nursemaid. We saw a glimpse of this in the canon timeline right after the rescue, but it was cut short by the eclipse. Here it stretches into weeks, months. Guts is sitting in the back of that covered wagon. The wheels are crunching over the gravel of the Midland borderlands. He looks at Griffith. This isn't the White Hawk who commanded armies. This isn't the radiant god figure who looked down from the top of the stairs. This is a trembling, mute invalid who soils himself because he has no control over his bodily functions. And Guts loves him, not romantically, but with that deep, confusing, fraternal bond that defines the entire series. But look closer at Guts' face. What do you see? It's not just pity, it's guilt. Massive, crushing guilt, because Guts knows deep down that he caused this. His departure triggered Griffith's collapse. In the canon, the eclipse gives Guts a target. It gives him femto. It gives him rage. Rage is useful. Rage is fuel. It allows you to swing the Dragon Slayer. But in this timeline, who does he hate? He can't hate Griffith. He can only hate himself. Imagine the campfire conversations. This is where the enthusiasm for discovery gets dark, my friends. Picture the band of the Hawk, the remnants. Pippin, Judeau, Corcus. They are alive. That's great, right? But what are they doing? They are mercenaries. They fight for coin and glory. But their leader is a vegetable. Their reputation is ruined. They are outlaws of the state. Corcus becomes the voice of reality here. You know he would be the first to crack. He didn't sign up to be a caretaker for a cripple. He signed up for the dream of nobility. I can hear his voice, cracking with frustration, 3 weeks into their exile. So, this is it? This is the legend? We're just wiping his ass until the king's army finds us? And Judeau, poor, sharp Judeau. He would try to hold it together. He would try to find a strategy. But what strategy is there? The dream is dead. Griffith cannot become king. There is no path to the castle anymore. The destination has vanished, but they are still walking the road. This brings us to the most crushing realization of this what-if scenario. The inversion of the power dynamic. Miura built the entire Golden Age on the tension between Guts and Griffith. Griffith was the dominant. Guts was the submissive in terms of agency. Griffith had the dream. Guts was just adding wood to the fire. Guts left because he wanted to be Griffith's equal. He wanted to be a friend by Griffith's definition. Someone who follows their own dream. If the eclipse doesn't happen, Guts wins the power dynamic, but in the most horrific way possible. He is now the strong one. Griffith is entirely dependent on him. Griffith is now the thing Guts has to protect. Do you remember that scene? The one where Griffith tries to strangle Guts in the snow, but his hands are too weak? In our timeline, that leads to the Behalit activating. In this timeline, he just fails. He tries to squeeze, and Guts probably just holds him, crying, whispering, "It's okay, Griffith. I'm here. I'm not leaving again." Can you imagine the humiliation? For a creature of pure ego like Griffith, that compassion is acid. Every gentle touch from Casca, every protective look from Guts, is a reminder that he is no longer the hawk. He is a broken bird in a cage made of their guilt. He isn't a god. He's a pet. Let's talk about Casca. This is where it gets truly heartbreaking. In the canon, the eclipse shattered Casca's mind. It was a violent, external trauma. But without the eclipse, Casca faces a slow, internal erosion. She loves Griffith. She worships him. But she has fallen in love with Guts. We saw this tension bubbling up just before the eclipse. She was ready to stay behind and take care of Griffith, sacrificing her own happiness with Guts. If the eclipse never happens, she actually does this. She becomes the martyr. She spends her days washing Griffith's wounds, feeding him broth, looking into those eyes that stare blankly at the wagon ceiling. And at night, she lies next to Guts. But can they be happy? Can they really explore their relationship, their passion, when the broken remnant of their former leader is lying 3 feet away, listening? Their love becomes a secret, something dirty. Every time they kiss, they feel like they are betraying the invalid in the corner. The romance that blossomed in the wounds chapters, it starts to wither. It suffocates under the weight of duty. Casca becomes resentful of Griffith for needing her, resentful of Guts for making her choose, resentful of herself for wanting to leave. She doesn't lose her mind to a demon rape. She loses her spark to the drudgery of palliative care. She becomes a shadow of the woman who commanded the Hawks. She's not the commander anymore. She's the caretaker. And that sword she carries, it starts to rust. And the band of the Hawk itself? They are being hunted. Midland is still after them. They can't hide forever. Without the supernatural fear of the Black Swordsman to protect them, without the tactical genius of the old Griffith to lead them. They are just a medium-sized bandit gang. Eventually, they have to run. Maybe to another country, maybe to the east, towards Kushan territory. Can you imagine Guts trying to lead the Hawks against the Kushan Empire without the Berserker armor, without the Dragon Slayer? Remember, he still has his standard sword here. Or maybe he keeps the one he broke wild with. The battles would be desperate. Pippin and Judo would eventually die, not by monsters, but by stray arrows or infection. Mundane deaths, boring deaths, deaths that have no meaning because they aren't dying for a dream anymore. They are dying just to keep a cripple alive for one more day. This is the struggle without the magic. Miura often talked about struggle, ragging against the current of causality. But here, the current isn't a raging river of destiny. It's a stagnant swamp. They are stuck in the mud. Now, I want to pivot to a specific moment that recontextualizes everything. Remember the bonfire of dreams speech? Guts talks to Casca about how everyone in the band is warming themselves on Griffith's fire. They cast their small dreams into his great roaring blaze. If Griffith survives as a cripple, the fire goes out. It's just gone. So, what happens to the people huddled around it? They freeze. The psychological cold sets in. The Band of the Hawk was a cult of personality. Without the personality, it's just a cult of tragedy. Guts would try to ignite his own fire. He would try to lead. But Guts isn't a leader in the same way. He leads by example, by violence, by forward momentum. He doesn't have Griffith's charisma. He can't convince Corcus that this life is worth living. He can't convince himself. He stays because of honor. He stays because of guilt. And those are terrible fuels for a life. Think about the sword, the Dragon Slayer. In the canon, Godot forges it, or rather, drags it out, because Guts needs to kill monsters. In this timeline, Guts never meets Godot again. He never gets the Dragon Slayer. He never becomes the Black Swordsman. He remains the 100-Man Slayer, a legend that slowly fades. He never fights Zod again. He never fights Rosine. He never meets Shirka or Farnese. Why? Because the Holy Iron Chain Knights have no reason to chase a non-existent Black Swordsman. The world of magic remains hidden behind the veil. Guts becomes a normal man, a strong man, yes, a deadly man, but a normal one. And is that what Guts is? Is that what Berserk is about? No. Berserk is about the confrontation with the abyss. By removing the Eclipse, we remove the abyss. And without the abyss, the light of their humanity has nothing to contrast against. We are left with a gray, depressing drama about a disabled veteran and his regrets. But wait, there is one person we haven't talked about enough yet, the most important person, Griffith. Inside that broken body, the mind is still sharp. The ambition is still infinite. The beast of darkness isn't a literal dog for him. It's his own ego. Imagine being Griffith. You can't speak. You can't move. But you can see. You see the pity in Guts' eyes. You see the way Casca looks at Guts. You see the sun rising and setting on days you will never use to conquer a kingdom. The torture didn't end in the Tower of Rebirth. The survival is the torture. In the manga, during the pre-eclipse moments, Griffith attempts suicide. He tries to impale himself on a sharp root. He realizes he can't even do that. He is utterly powerless. The Behalit offers him a choice. I sacrifice. It's an act of agency. It's the ultimate evil act of taking back control. If the Behalit is lost, Griffith is denied that choice. He is forced to live in the humiliation. Does he go insane? Does he catatonically withdraw? Or does he become something twisted in a human way? Does he start to hate Guts with a mundane, venomous hatred? Picture a scene. It's raining. The wagon is leaking. Guts is trying to feed Griffith. Griffith bites Guts' hand, not like a vampire, but like a furious, impotent child. He glares at Guts with eyes that scream, "Kill me! Why won't you let me die?" And Guts, the struggler, just takes the bandage and wraps his hand and says, "I can't, Griffith. We're friends." That line, "We're friends," which used to be the most beautiful hope in the series, becomes a curse. It binds them together in a slow suicide pact. This is the darkness Miura was flirting with. The eclipse was a climax, an explosion. But the alternative was a suffocation. As we close this first chapter of our analysis, I want you to sit with that feeling. The feeling of a happy ending that feels like a funeral. We saved the bodies of the Band of the Hawk, but we sacrificed their purpose. Is it better to die by a demon's tooth while chasing a dream, or to live for 40 years, wiping the bottom of the man who failed to achieve it? This is the question the No Eclipse timeline forces us to ask. It strips away the fantasy and leaves us with the brutal reality of disability, codependency, and the death of ambition. But the story can't end here, right? Human nature doesn't just sit still and rot. Pressure builds. Cracks form. And even without demons, monsters have a way of finding us. In the next chapter, we are going to explore the inevitable collapse of this fragile trio. We're going to look at what happens when the hero Guts tries to live a life he was never built for, and how the shadow of the King of Midland, the very human monster, looms over their petty, tragic peace. Because you can hide from the God hand, but you can't hide from yourself. The seasons turn, leaves fall, snow covers the tracks of the wagon, and the mud of spring returns. In the manga, the time skip after the eclipse is 2 years. Let's apply that same time frame here. 2 years of running, 2 years of hiding, 2 years of silence. If Chapter 1 was about the immediate shock of the survival, Chapter 2 is about the slow, grinding erosion of the soul. We need to talk about Guts. We need to talk about the sword. And we need to talk about the beast of darkness, not as a mystical entity born of magical trauma, but as a psychological tumor growing in the silence of a mundane life. You see, Miura never wrote Guts as a peaceful man. Even in the peaceful interludes, Guts is vibrating with potential violence. He is a weapon. He was born from a corpse, raised by mercenaries, and molested by the battlefield. Violence is his native language. It is how he communicates with the world. In the canon timeline, the eclipse gave him a justification for that violence. It gave him a holy war. He could unleash the beast because he was fighting demons. It was righteous slaughter. But in this timeline, who does he fight? Imagine Guts 2 years into this exile. He is 21 or 22 years old. He is in his physical prime, but he is doing laundry in a cold stream. He is chopping wood for a fire that barely warms them. He is hunting rabbits, not apostles. Look at his hands in this imaginary panel. They are shaking, not from fear, but from withdrawal. He is an addict denied his drug. The drug is the struggle. The drug is the life or death limit. Without the eclipse, Guts is a tiger in a zoo, pacing back and forth in a cage made of loyalty. The dragon slayer doesn't exist here, remember? He still carries a greatsword, but it's just a piece of steel. It's not the mythical slab of iron infused with the malice of thousands of dead demons. It's just a tool that is slowly getting heavier, not because of its weight, but because of its uselessness. He sharpens it every night. Shk, shk, shk. The sound echoes in the campsite. It drives Casca crazy. It's the sound of Guts trying to hold on to an identity that no longer fits. He is the captain of the raiders without a raid. And this is where the relationship with Casca begins to rot. In the canon, their trauma bonded them. They were the only two survivors of hell. But here, they are co-workers in a hospice. The sexual tension we saw in the wounds chapters, it doesn't resolve into a healthy relationship. It curds. Why? Because Griffith is always watching. Let's zoom in on the interior of the wagon. This is the crucible. It's a small, dark space. The smell of sickness is permanent now. Griffith is there, propped up on pillows. He is gaunt, pale, his beauty turned into a ghostly caricature. He cannot speak, but his eyes track everything. When Guts and Casca touch, his eyes dart to them. When they argue, he watches. When they sleep, he watches. Casca, the fierce warrior who commanded respect, is drowning in traditional gender roles she fought her whole life to escape. Miura often explored Casca's struggle with her femininity versus her warrior nature. In this timeline, the warrior is stripped away. She is forced into the role of mother to Griffith and wife to Guts. But she chose neither role freely. She cleans Griffith. She feeds him. She sees the humiliation in his eyes every time she wipes his chin, and she hates herself for seeing it. She starts to resent Guts, not because she doesn't love him, but because Guts represents freedom she can't have. Guts can walk away. He can go hunt. He can chop wood. She is tethered to the wagon. She is tethered to the ghost of her dreams. In the canon, Casca loses her mind to escape the pain. Here, she keeps her mind, and that might be worse. She is fully aware of the slow death of her potential, the spark in her eyes that Guts loved. It dims. She becomes hard, bitter. The conversations between them become short, functional. Did we get food? Is the fire lit? Did he sleep? They stop talking about dreams. To speak of dreams in front of the crippled hawk is an insult. So they stop speaking of the future entirely. They live only in the miserable present. This is the death of hope, fully realized. But the world outside hasn't forgotten them. And this is where we reintroduce the monster. Not Zod, not the God Hand, but the King of Midland. We often forget how terrifying the king was in the Wild Ark. He is a man driven insane by lust and possessiveness over his daughter Charlotte, and by a deep inferiority complex hatred for Griffith. In the canon, the Eclipse renders the king's pursuit irrelevant. But here, the king is still alive. He is still on the throne, and he wants his prisoner back. The king represents the old world order, the crushing weight of hierarchy that Griffith tried to transcend. The king sends search parties, not just clumsy soldiers, but elite assassins, the Bakiraka, remember them? Salat and his warriors. In the canon, they become complex figures later on. Here, they are just hunters. Let's construct a scene, a pivotal moment that exposes the darkness in Guts. It's a rainy night. The trio is camped in a ruin near the border. The Bakiraka ambush them. This isn't a fight against giant monsters. It's a fight against highly skilled humans. Guts grabs his sword, and for the first time in 2 years, he smiles. Can you see that smile? It's not the heroic grin of the Golden Age. It's the rictus of the Black Swordsman, arriving early. He unleashes. He doesn't just defend the wagon. He butchers the attackers. He chops limbs. He crushes skulls. The violence is excessive. It's gratuitous. He is venting 2 years of frustration, 2 years of changing diapers and biting his tongue. He is painting the ruins red. And Casca watches him. In the manga, Casca is often awed by Guts' strength. But here, she is horrified. She sees that he is enjoying it. She sees that the man she loves is a killer who is only truly alive when he is dealing death. She realizes that the domestic life they are trying to build is a lie. Guts is a beast. He needs blood to breathe. When the fight is over, Guts stands there, heaving, covered in gore. He turns to the wagon, expecting praise, expecting validation. He looks at Casca, eyes wild. "I got them," he says. "I got them all." Casca steps back. She clutches her own sword, not against the enemy, but almost defensively against him. "You didn't have to do that," she whispers, pointing to the mangled remains of a human body. And then they look at the wagon. The flap is open. Griffith is watching. And Griffith is smiling? No, not smiling. It's a rictus of envy and recognition. Griffith sees the king in Guts now. He sees the capacity for absolute dominance. In the canon, Griffith sacrificed the hawks to become femto to regain his power. Here, he sees that Guts has the power naturally. Guts imposes his will on reality through violence. Guts is the struggler who succeeds where the hawk failed. This dynamic shifts the triangular relationship into a toxic spiral. Griffith, in his silence, starts to manipulate them. How does a mute quadriplegic manipulate? With his vulnerability. Imagine Griffith refusing to eat. He starves himself. Guts and Casca panic. They beg him to eat. Griffith stares at them, locking eyes with Guts. He is using his own body, the only thing he has left, as a hostage. "Do what I want, or I die." He forces them to dance to his tune. He becomes a tyrant of weakness. He starts to drive a wedge between them. When Guts is near, Griffith acts terrified, playing on Guts' guilt that he is a monster, validated by the slaughter of the assassins. When Casca is near, Griffith looks at her with mournful, romantic longing, playing on her old devotion. He is destroying their relationship to keep them bound to him. If they love each other, they might leave him. If they hate each other, but love him, they stay. It is genius. It is sociopathic. It is pure Griffith. We realize then that Griffith didn't need the God Hand to be a monster. The seed was always there. The eclipse just gave him the power to project it outwards. Without the eclipse, he projects it inwards, into the microcosm of the wagon. The narrative tension escalates. The King of Midland's forces are closing in. They aren't just sending assassins anymore. They are sending an army. The Black Dog Knights might be gone, but the king has other resources. He burns villages looking for them. He puts a bounty on their heads that turns every peasant into a potential enemy. The trio is isolated. The world is hostile. And inside the wagon, the air is poisonous. Guts starts to have nightmares, not of demons, but of killing Griffith. He dreams of wrapping his hands around that frail white throat and squeezing until the burden is gone. He wakes up sweating, terrified of his own subconscious. This is the beast of darkness, manifesting as the intrusive thought of Mercy killing his best friend. "Why won't you die?" the voice in his head asks. "You want to be the hawk? Then fly away. Leave us be." He confesses this to Casca one night in a moment of weakness. Sometimes I wish he had died in the torture chamber." Casca slaps him. It's a sharp, cracking sound in the winter air. "How can you say that after everything he did for us?" But then she breaks down crying. Because she has wished the same thing. They hold each other, weeping in the snow, united by their shame. They are praying for the death of the man they dedicated their lives to saving. This is the psychological abyss. This is deeper than the eclipse. The eclipse was a violation from without. This is a rot from within. They are losing their humanity not by becoming demons, but by wishing for death. And then the breaking point arrives. They are cornered. A massive force of Midland regulars surrounds them. There is no escape. No Zod to interfere. No Skull Knight to break through the dimension. Just 3 humans against 100 soldiers. Guts draws his sword. He knows he can't win. He can take 50 with him, maybe. But not all of them. He looks at Casca. She is ready to die. And Griffith? Griffith is looking at the crimson Behelit. Wait, I told you the Behelit was lost in the river. I told you it slipped. And it did. But do you really think causality is that clumsy? Do you really think the laws of the universe, the great spiral of destiny that Mayura drew so painstakingly, would let the egg of the king just wash away downstream? In this timeline, let's introduce a twist that recontextualizes the magic of Berserk. The Behelit finds its way back. Maybe a fisherman found it. Maybe a merchant. Maybe it changed hands 20 times in 2 years. And on this day, as the Midland army surrounds them, a soldier steps forward. He is the captain of the pursuit. He is holding something up. A strange, crying pendant he bought from a traveling peddler, because it looked valuable. "Is this what you stole, Fallen Hawk?" The captain jeers. He throws it at the wagon. It lands in the mud, right next to the wheel. Griffith sees it, the eyes, the mouth. It's staring at him. The choice returns. But this time, the context is different. In the original Eclipse, Griffith sacrificed the band of the hawk to save his dream. Here, the band is already dead. The hawks are gone. Only Guts and Casca remain. And they are miserable. They are broken. They are hating him and hating themselves. Does Griffith sacrifice them to become a god? Or does he realize something even more terrifying? Here is where we diverge into the unknown. If Griffith activates the Behelit now, after 2 years of being cared for by them, is the sacrifice valid? The God hand requires you to sever that which makes you human. But hasn't he already severed it? He has spent 2 years draining the life out of them. Or perhaps, in this timeline, the Behelit activates. But Griffith says no, not out of kindness, but out of spite. Spite for a world that reduced him to this. Spite for a God hand that waited until he was covered in his own filth to offer him a hand. Or maybe Guts sees the Behelit, and Guts remembers Zod's prophecy. When this man's ambition collapses, a death will occur. Guts realizes that as long as Griffith lives, the Eclipse is always waiting. The potential for doom is always there. The soldiers charge. The arrows fly. Guts roars, swinging his rusted sword. The slaughter begins. It is messy, desperate, and devoid of glory. And in the chaos, the Behelit starts to scream, not because Griffith activated it, but because the sheer density of human misery in that one spot, the hatred, the love, the regret, the despair, is enough to tear the veil. The sky doesn't turn red, it turns gray. A gray eclipse, an eclipse of apathy. But we can't end the chapter on the magic. We must end it on the human element. As Guts fights, he is separated from the wagon. He is buried under a pile of bodies. He is fighting like a man possessed, biting throats, gouging eyes. He is the beast. And when he finally clears the circle, he looks back. The wagon is on fire. The king's archers have used fire arrows. The canvas is ablaze. Casca is screaming, trying to pull Griffith out. But the fire is too hot. The horses are panicking. Guts has to make a choice. A choice that defines this timeline. Does he save Casca, or does he save Griffith? In the Golden Age, he chose to leave Griffith to find himself. In the Eclipse, he tried to save Griffith, and failed. Here, he has a split second. Casca is pinned by a falling beam. Griffith is staring at him through the flames. holding the behelit that he managed to crawl and grab. Griffith looks at Guts, and for the first time in 2 years, he moves his lips. He mouths one word: Guts. The sheer weight of that moment crushes the air out of the scene. The fire roars, the soldiers cheer, the tragedy is absolute. Guts runs. But who does he run towards? If he saves Casca, Griffith burns. The dream dies in fire. The burden is lifted. They are free, but they are murderers by omission. If he saves Griffith, Casca burns. The woman he loves dies for the man who enslaved them, and Guts is left alone with the monster. This is the cruelty of Berserk. It's not about monsters eating you. It's about the impossible choices that eat you. Guts dives. We don't see who he grabs yet. All we see is the fire consuming the frame. All we hear is the roar of the flames mixing with the scream of the behelit, which is now melting in the heat, crying tears of blood that sizzle in the fire. The screen fades to black on the image of Guts's outstretched hand, reaching into the inferno. This is the end of the struggle to maintain the status quo. The status quo is burned down. Whatever rises from the ashes in Chapter 3 will not be the Band of the Hawk. It will be something new, something scarred, something born of fire and regret. And the question remains: can you kill a dream if it refuses to die? The smoke clears, but the smell of burning flesh never really leaves your nose, does it? That is the sensory detail that defines this 3rd chapter. In the previous chapter, we left Guts reaching into the inferno. He made his choice. He grabbed Casca. The logic was primal, instant, and biological. You save the person who can walk. You save the person who you can build a future with. You save the woman you love. You leave the broken god to the flames. It wasn't a calculated betrayal. It was a reflex of life, preserving life. But as they stumble away from the ambush, dragging themselves through the muddy forests of the borderlands, while the king's soldiers poke through the embers of the wagon, a new kind of silence descends between them. It is the silence of accomplices. They killed him. By inaction, by choice, by the simple fact of running away, they killed Griffith. This is where the timeline shifts from a survival drama to a psychological ghost story. We skip forward again. Not 2 years this time, but perhaps 3 or 4. The timeline of the world marches on, indifferent to their personal tragedy. In the canon, this is the period where the Kushan Empire begins its invasion. In our no Eclipse reality, without the reborn Griffith to rally the Holy See Alliance, without the Neo-Band of the Hawk to act as the savior, Midland is absolutely decimated. Emperor Ganishka rolls over the kingdom like a tidal wave of mist and steel. The world is turning into a living hell, not because of demons, but because of war, famine, and pestilence. And where are Guts and Casca? They are alive. They found a remote village, perhaps high in the mountains, far from the trade routes. They are safe. Guts chops wood, Casca weaves. They have a child. Yes, a child. Not the demon fetus corrupted by femto, but a normal, healthy human child. This should be the happy ending, right? This is what every fan wanted for them: peace, family, safety. But look closely at their eyes. Guts is a man haunting his own life. He wakes up every morning, looks at his sword, which hangs on the wall, gathering dust, not rust, because he cleans it obsessively, and he feels a phantom limb. He feels the weight of the struggle he abandoned. He sees the smoke of the wagon in the chimney fire. He looks at his son, and he loves him, but he also sees the price he paid for him. He bought this happiness with Griffith's ashes. And Casca is a shell. She loves the child fiercely, almost violently, because the child is the only proof that their survival was worth it. But she can't look at Guts for too long. When she looks at Guts, she remembers the moment he turned his back on the fire. She remembers the betrayal. She knows it was for her, and that makes the guilt unbearable. She resents him for saving her at such a cost, and she hates herself for being the reason the hawk died. Their relationship is polite, functional, and utterly devoid of intimacy. They are two soldiers sharing a foxhole, waiting for a war that ended years ago. This is the darkness of the human condition that Miura excelled at exploring. The idea that survival is not the same as living. They are surviving, but they are spiritually dead. They are rotting from the inside out, consumed by the what-ifs, but the world outside is screaming. Refugees start pouring into the mountains. They bring stories. And this is where the narrative hook digs in deep. They talk of a demon king from the east, Ganishka, who turns men into monsters. But they also talk of something else, something stranger. They speak of the White Phantom. Rumors travel like a virus. Travelers say that in the ruined capital of Wyndham, in the sewers and the catacombs beneath the fallen city, there is a leader. A man who commands the lepers, the cripples, the broken, and the dying. They say he has no face. They say he wears a mask of bandages. They say he cannot speak, but his will is so strong that men throw themselves onto spears for him. They call him the King of Beggars, the Lord of the Flies. Guts hears this in a tavern one night while trading furs, and the glass shakes in his hand. A mask of bandages, cannot speak. The realization hits him like a cannonball. The fire didn't kill him. Of course it didn't. Causality isn't that kind. The Behalit, the egg of the king, wouldn't let its owner die a mundane death in a wagon fire. It protected him. It melted, perhaps, fused to him. Or maybe he just crawled. The image of a charred, legless Griffith crawling out of the burning wreckage, fueled by pure, distilled spite, is more terrifying than any apostle. Guts goes home. He packs his bag. He takes the sword off the wall. Casca watches him. She doesn't ask where he is going. She knows. She has known this day would come for 4 years. She stands in the doorway, holding their child. "If you go," she says, her voice trembling, "don't come back until it's finished." "I have to know," Guts says. "I know," she replies, and she closes the door. This departure is different from the one in the snow years ago. That was a departure of ambition. This is a departure of penance. Guts walks down the mountain into the burning world of the Midland Kushan War. He isn't the Black Swordsman hunting God-Hand members. He is a ghost hunter. He fights his way through Kushan patrols. And we see that his skills haven't faded. In fact, they've become colder. He kills with surgical efficiency. He isn't enjoying it anymore. He is just clearing the path. He reaches Wyndham. The city is a nightmare. Ganishka's mist monsters roam the streets. The architecture is twisted, but Guts goes underground. He descends into the abyss of the sewers, guided by the whispers of the outcasts. The atmosphere here is thick with disease and despair. It's a hierarchy of the hopeless. And at the center of it, in a great cistern lit by tallow candles made of human fat, sits the court of the White Phantom. And there he is. He is wrapped in rags. He sits on a throne made of debris and bones. He is small, frail, but the aura is suffocating. It's the charisma of the void. Hundreds of diseased, starving people kneel before him, worshipping him as a savior because he accepts their ugliness. Guts steps into the light. The crowd hisses. They sense the predator, but the figure on the throne raises a hand that is fused, scarred, the fingers like melted wax. The crowd parts. Guts walks forward. The smell is overwhelming. He stops 10 paces away. He looks at the figure. "Griffith," he whispers. The figure slowly unwraps the bandages around its head. The reveal is grotesque. The fire took the beauty. It took the angelic face that charmed a kingdom. The skin is a landscape of keloid scars. The hair is gone, save for a few wisps of white. The nose is gone. The lips are fused. But the eyes are untouched. Those blue, piercing falcon eyes. They stare out of the ruin of the face with an intensity that could cut glass. Griffith is alive, but he isn't the hawk anymore. He's a monster of his own making. He survived through hate. Hate for Guts. Hate for Casca. Hate for the world that burned him. He didn't become a god hand. He became a symbol of suffering. Guts falls to his knees, not in worship, but in horror. "I thought you were dead," he chokes out. I tried to save." Griffith makes a sound. It's a guttural, wet noise. He can't speak, but he gestures. He points a scarred finger at Guts. Then he points to the sword on Guts's back. Then he points to his own neck. "Kill me. Or is it?" Guts looks closer. The eyes aren't begging for death. They are mocking. The gesture changes. Griffith points to the sword, then points to the tunnel behind Guts, leading back to the surface, back to the war. "Fight for me." Griffith has built an army of the damned. He intends to fight Ganishka. He intends to take the kingdom. Even as a monster, he is challenging Guts. "You felt guilty? You felt sorry for me? Then be my sword again. If you truly regret leaving me to burn, then give me your life now. Total submission. No dreams of your own. Just my tool." This is the psychological trap. The eclipse in this timeline isn't a sacrificial feast. It's a slavery contract signed in guilt. If Guts refuses, he has to kill Griffith here and now to end the misery. If he accepts, he becomes the hound of a madman fighting a hopeless war against an emperor who controls lightning. Guts stands up. The tension is unbearable. The beast of darkness inside him is roaring, confused. It wants to kill the prey, but the prey is his friend. The prey is his victim. Suddenly, the roof of the cistern shakes. Dust falls. The Kushan have found them. Ganishka's Dhaka soldiers burst into the sanctuary. The slaughter begins. The lepers try to fight with sticks and stones, but they are being butchered. Griffith sits there, immobile, watching his new band get slaughtered just like the old one. He doesn't flinch. He looks at Guts. Well, Guts draws the sword, and the roar that comes out of his throat isn't human. It's the sound of a man who realizes he is trapped in a loop of violence he can never escape. He attacks the Daku. He isn't fighting to save the lepers. He is fighting to protect the monster on the throne. He enters the Berserk state not through armor, but through sheer psychological breakdown. He spins, he cleaves, he bathes in blood. He creates a circle of death around Griffith. And as Guts fights, tearing through the Kushan monsters, Griffith watches. And for the first time since the torture chamber, a tear rolls down that scarred, lidless eye. Is it gratitude? Is it sadness? Or is it the realization that he still owns Guts? That Guts belongs to him, body and soul, bound by the chains of that night in the fire? The chapter culminates in a tableau of insanity. Guts, covered in gore, panting, standing amidst a pile of dismembered demons. Griffith, the king of beggars, sitting untouched on his throne of trash, the sewers echoing with the screams of the dying. And then Griffith reaches into his rags. He pulls out something that survived the fire, something that didn't melt. The crimson Behalit. It wasn't destroyed. It was waiting. It was waiting for Guts to return. It was waiting for the despair to reach its absolute zenith. It wasn't the physical pain of the torture that would trigger it. It was the emotional torture of this reunion, the realization that their bond is nothing but pain. The Behalit opens its eyes. The environment shifts. The sewer walls seem to breathe. The water turns to blood. But wait, we said no eclipse, right? We said this is the timeline where the event didn't happen at the lake. And it won't happen here, not in the same way. Because Guts sees it. He sees the activation starting. And Guts remembers the Skull Knight's warning, if he ever received it in this timeline, maybe in a dream. He knows what this means. He turns to Griffith. He points his sword at the Behalit in Griffith's hand. No, Guts says. His voice is flat, dead. No more. Griffith looks at the Behalit, then at Guts. The offer is on the table again. Sacrifice him. Sacrifice the swordsman. Sacrifice the memory of the hawks. Be healed. Be king. But Griffith looks at Guts, this broken, loyal, terrifying dog who came back from paradise just to find him in hell. And Griffith drops the Behalit. He drops it into the sewer water. Plop. It sinks. Why? Because Griffith realizes that owning Guts as a human is more satisfying than sacrificing him to become a demon? Or because, in some twisted way, he loves him too much to let him go, even to the vortex? Or perhaps his pride is so great he refuses to use the shortcut the God Hand offers? He will conquer the world as a monster, or not at all. The Behalit is gone. The magic recedes. They are left alone in the dark. Just two men. One broken body, one broken mind. Oh, what now? Guts asks the silence. Griffith raises his hand and points up, towards the city, towards the castle, towards Ganishka. The mission is clear. They are going to retake the dream, just the two of them, against an empire. It is suicide. It is madness. It is the most berserk thing imaginable. Guts sheathes his sword. He walks over to Griffith. He picks him up, carrying him on his back like he did after the rescue. Griffith is light. He feels like a bundle of dry sticks. Let's go, Guts says, as they begin the climb toward the surface, toward the impossible battle that awaits. The camera pans down to the sewer water. The Behalit is there, resting in the muck. One eye is open. It seems to be waiting for the moment when the struggle becomes too much. But for now, the struggle continues. The phoenix has risen, but it is a bird of ash and bone, and the swordsman has returned to his master, not as a friend, but as a bearer of the cross. This chapter closes on the image of them emerging from a manhole cover into the burning streets of Wyndham. The sky is choked with smoke. Lightning strikes from Ganishka's cloud form, and standing against the apocalypse are a scarred cripple and a man with a rusted soul. This isn't heroism, it's obsession, and it is absolutely magnificent in its tragedy. We have arrived at the end of the road. Can you feel the weight of it? It's not just the narrative weight. It's the physical crushing pressure of the atmosphere we are stepping into. We left Guts and the charred remnant of Griffith climbing out of the sewers into the apocalypse of Wyndham. Above them, Emperor Ganishka looms. In the canon, Ganishka becomes a Shiva avatar, a cloud god that scrapes the stratosphere. Here, let's assume he is in his mist giant form, a towering storm of electricity and malice that occupies the entire city square. He is the ultimate endpoint of magical power, a man who became a force of nature. And facing him, not a skull knight, not a party of magic users, Not a legendary Black Swordsman in dwarf-forged armor, just a man with a rusted soul carrying a burnt cripple on his back. This image right here, Guts carrying Griffith into certain death, is the final thesis statement of this timeline. It is the inversion of the Golden Age. In the beginning, Griffith carried Guts's ambition. Now, Guts carries Griffith's physical ruin. They are a single entity of pure defiance. The battle begins, and I want you to visualize the sheer unfairness of it. In the manga, the fight against Ganishka involved Zod and Guts teaming up, flying through the lightning. Here, there is no flight. There is only the mud. Ganishka looks down and sees them. Does he even recognize them? To an emperor who challenges God, they are ants. He sends his Daka, his Pishacha, his legions of possessed soldiers. It is a tide of meat and steel washing over two broken men. Guts swings. The sword is heavy. His joints scream. He is older now, slower than the Guts we know. He hasn't had the supernatural sharpening of fighting apostles every night. He gets cut. He gets stabbed. Blood sprays over Griffith's scarred legs. But Guts doesn't stop. Why? Because Griffith is on his back, and this is where the enthusiasm for discovery turns into a realization of horror and beauty. Griffith, the mute tactician, starts to direct the fight. He taps Guts's left shoulder. Guts swings left. He taps the right. Guts parries right. He presses his forehead against the back of Guts's neck to signal a charge. They are fighting as one organism. It is the perfect synchronization they always unconsciously wanted. In the battle for Doldry, they were separated by the field. Here, they are fused by necessity. It is a dance of death, choreographed by a genius mind and executed by a brutal body. But there is no glory here. There is no swelling orchestral music. There is only the wet thud of iron on flesh and the ragged breathing of a dying man. Guts is taking damage that would kill a normal human. He is running on adrenaline and that dark, self-destructive fuel we call the struggle. He isn't fighting to win. He knows he can't win. He is fighting to prove that he is. Ganishka notices. The Emperor pauses his lightning storm. He sees this speck of dust that refuses to be blown away. He sees the white phantom on the back of the swordsman. And Ganishka laughs. His laughter shakes the foundations of the ruined cathedral. Is this the hawk? The wind roars. Is this the rival of the gods? A parasite clinging to a dog? The insult hits them both. And for a split second, the old Griffith flares up. He digs his fingernails, or what's left of them, into Guts' shoulders. Go! The command is silent, but it screams through Guts' nervous system. Show him! Guts roars. It's the roar of the bonfire of dreams, finally consuming the wood. He charges straight into the heart of the mist. He ignores the soldiers. He takes arrows in the thigh, in the ribs. He hurtles over piles of corpses. He is running up the debris of the palace, aiming for the physical manifestation of Ganishka's face in the fog. This is the moment where we realize the tragedy of the no Eclipse timeline. In the original story, Guts fights to protect Casca and his new friends. He fights for the future. Here, he fights for the past. He is trying to retroactively validate the wasted years. He is trying to give Griffith a death that matters, so his own life wasn't wasted serving a ghost. They reach the pinnacle. A lightning bolt strikes Guts. He falls. Smoke rises from his armor. He can't get up. His muscles have finally failed. The limit that Miura always talked about, the limit of the human body against the supernatural, has been reached. Guts lies on the stone, looking up at the swirling face of the Emperor. He can't move his arms. He can't lift the sword. And then Griffith moves. The cripple drags himself off Guts' back. He crawls. He crawls over Guts' chest. He looks down at Guts. The fire has taken his face, but Guts knows that expression. It's the same expression he wore in the river before the duel. I own you, but you are also the only one who makes me forget the dream. Griffith positions himself between Guts and the Emperor. He stands. It takes everything he has. His atrophied legs shake. He stands on the ruins of Wyndham, a tiny, burnt scarecrow facing a hurricane. He raises one hand toward the Emperor, and he smiles. A ruinous, lipless smile. Ganishka is confused. Is this a challenge? Does this insect think he can stop the storm? Griffith isn't attacking Ganishka. He is mocking him. He is showing the Emperor that even stripped of godhood, even stripped of beauty, speech, and tendons, the will of the hawk is unbroken. He is winning the psychological war. He is saying, you are a slave to your power. I am the master of my ruin. Ganishka, furious at this insolence, unleashes a final bolt of lightning, a pillar of white light that incinerates the rooftop. Guts watches. He sees the light consume Griffith. He sees the silhouette of the hawk disintegrate, not ascending to become femto, but turning to ash, dust to dust. And in that moment, Guts doesn't feel despair. He feels relief. The burden is gone. The ghost is exorcised. The dream is finally, truly dead. The blast throws Guts off the roof. He falls into the dark waters of the city moat below. The cold water embraces him. He sinks. He watches the surface recede. He is bleeding out. He is drowning. And as he fades, he thinks of Casca. Does the scene end there, with death? No. That would be too simple. Miura's genius was in the persistence of life. Guts wakes up. He is on a riverbank, miles downstream. The current carried him out of the city, out of the war zone. He is alive. Why? Because the struggle is a curse that refuses to let him rest. He coughs up water and blood. He is broken. He will never hold a sword again. His right arm is shattered. His body is a wreck. He lies in the mud, staring at the sky. The smoke from Wyndham rises in the distance. The Emperor has won the battle, but the war for the soul is over. He crawls. He doesn't crawl back to the fight. He crawls away. He crawls towards the mountains, toward the village, toward the family he left behind. It takes him months to get back. He is a beggar now. He relies on the kindness of strangers. He is the very thing he used to despise. Weak. But in this weakness he finds a strange new strength. The strength to accept being ordinary. The strength to let go of the sword. He reaches the village in winter. He stumbles to the door of the cabin. Casca opens it. She sees him. He is half the man he was. He is scarred, limping, empty-handed. He doesn't have the dragon slayer. He doesn't have Griffith. He has nothing. And Casca drops the basket she was holding. She rushes to him. She doesn't ask, did you win? She doesn't ask, where is Griffith? She knows. She sees the peace in his eyes, the terrible, hollow peace of a survivor who has buried his ghosts. She holds him. And for the first time in years, Guts cries. He cries not for Griffith, but for the time he lost. He cries for the stupidity of the dream. He cries for the beauty of the snow falling on his wife's hair. This is the ending of the no eclipse timeline. It is not an epic fantasy ending. It is a quiet, devastatingly human ending. The years pass. Guts becomes the village blacksmith. He makes horseshoes. He makes nails. He never makes weapons. His son grows up. The boy asks about the scars. He asks about the white hawk the bards sing about, the demon who challenged the Emperor. Guts just smiles, a sad, tired smile. That's just a story, he says. Just a bad dream I had once. Midland falls. The world changes. Eras come and go. But in a small cabin in the mountains, A man and a woman grow old together, haunted by the silence of what could have been. Now, let's pull back and analyze this. Why is this timeline so important to explore? Why does it hurt differently than the eclipse? Because the eclipse gave them a purpose. The trauma of the eclipse, as horrific as it was, gave Guts a reason to push beyond his limits. It gave Casca a reason to be healed. It created a narrative of ascension. Guts became the Black Swordsman because he had to. In this timeline, without the eclipse, they succumb to entropy. They don't explode. They fade. Griffith rots. Guts rusts. Casca withers. The tragedy here is not the presence of evil, but the absence of meaning. This teaches us something profound about Berserk and about our own lives. We often wish for a life without trauma. We wish the bad thing never happened. But Miura was showing us that it is the confrontation with the bad thing, the struggle against the abyss, that defines our humanity. If Guts never fights the apostles, he never learns the value of protecting others. He remains a stunted man-child, clinging to a toxic friendship. The eclipse forced him to grow up. It forced him to build a new family, not out of obligation, but out of love. The no-eclipse timeline is a warning. It warns us against holding on to dead dreams. It warns us against the codependency that masquerades as loyalty. It shows us that sometimes the worst thing that can happen to a friendship is that it continues past its expiration date. Griffith needed to die, metaphorically or literally, for Guts to live. In the canon, Griffith killed his humanity to become a god. In this timeline, he killed his friend's spirits to remain a man, which is truly more evil. As we close the book on this what if, I want you to feel the gratitude for its struggle. Be grateful that Guts has the dragon slayer. Be grateful he has the rage, because the alternative is this quiet, snowy graveyard of potential. We leave Guts there, by the fire, an old man with shaking hands, watching the embers fade. He survived. But at what cost? He kept his body, but he lost his legend. And perhaps, in the deep silence of the night, when the wind howls through the mountain pass, he still hears it, the sound of the behelit, the sound of the scream that never happened. And he wonders if, in some other world, in some other nightmare, he is still swinging that sword, fighting forever against the dark. And he wonders which version of himself is the lucky one. That, my friends, is the brilliance of Berserk. There are no happy endings. There are only choices, and every choice demands a sacrifice. Thank you for walking this path through the dark with me. It's been heavy, I know, but isn't the weight what makes it real? Go hug someone you love. Go fight for your dream. And never, ever let your sword rust.